Hello, this is the Green Ghouls, and welcome back to Goosebumps Revisited, a series where I break down a classic Goosebumps book and any episode that goes along with it. I will also be totaling up some of our Goosebumps cliches and classic moments. This week, I'm excited to visit Werewolf Skin. This book was one I've been looking forward to since starting the series because I love werewolves, and the Werewolf of Fever Swamp left me a bit disappointed. Werewolf Skin definitely goes in on the werewolf action and is a good time, even if the protagonist makes ridiculous decisions left and right. You should check it out if you haven't yet. The 1997 cover is one of my all-time favorites. I just really like the look of the werewolf itself, and think a skinned werewolf is a fun concept. I was surprised to see this book never got a reprint, considering it seems to be fairly well liked among readers, but I guess that's what happens when you're the third to last book in the series. This book ends our trend of the trading card book tear-out, and replaces it with a werewolf mask tear-out in certain copies of the book. My book was a later printing, I think, so there was no mask included. In the back of the book, we have another promo for the Goosebumps triple header, which boasts a hologram on every cover, and gives us a little blurb about each monster. We have Lefty, he's cruising for scares or something worse. Slim, don't think for a minute you can get away from him. And Righty, but he's here to tell you something is definitely wrong. On the last page, we have a vague promo for Cry of the Cat, which is the first of the Series 2000 books. These promos will appear in the next few books trying to build up hype around this upcoming mystery project. Our front take says, all dressed up and no place to howl, which is a play on all dressed up and no place to go. Our back take says, it's a full moon. Do you know where your werewolf is? Which I'm assuming is a play on the
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Okay, let's check out this blurb on the back. Picture this, Alex Hunter, photography freak, hanging out in Wolf Creek. Who lives in Wolf Creek? Al's Uncle Colin and Aunt Marta. They're professional photographers. Uncle Colin and Aunt Marta are pretty cool. They only have two requests. Don't go in the woods late at night, and stay away from the creepy house next door. Poor Alex, he just wanted to take a couple of pictures. But now, he's about to find out the secret of Wolf Creek, late one night when the moon is full. Okay, let's start this summary. The book opens with our introduction to Alex Hunter, whose parents have abandoned him in Wolf Creek with his elderly Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin while they jet off to France for work. This book is very timely because it's October and approaching Halloween, so Alex is admiring the changing fall leaves as he's waiting for his relatives at the bus stop shack. He doesn't have to wait long though, because his aunt and uncle roll up in a rusty old van. They spend a few pages bonding over photography, because Alex is very into cameras and his aunt and uncle are professional photographers. They promise to teach him some photo tricks, and as they're driving through this incredibly small town in the middle of the woods, the subject of Halloween costumes comes up. Alex declares he wants to be a werewolf for Halloween, but this does not garner the reaction he expected. His aunt shrieks no, and his uncle proceeds to plow through a stop sign right in front of an oncoming truck in a chapter cliffhanger, because he is just that distraught at this costume choice. They narrowly miss the truck, but not without launching Alex all around the van because it's the 90s and who needs seatbelts. Aunt Marta starts rambling about how the mention of werewolves must have made Uncle Colin start stressing about their neighbors, the Marlins, but Uncle Colin tells her to hush because we're trying to build some suspense here. Alex then asks why it's called Wolf Creek, and Uncle Colin says there used to be a lot of wolves here, and Aunt Marta chimes in, used to be, because Aunt Marta understands that the goal is suspense. They pull up to the modest house in the forest, and Alex immediately notices the rundown house next door, which must be the Marlins. He learns that there's a neighbor girl on the other side of the house named Hannah that is his age, that I'm sure he'll befriend at some point. Alex asks about the Marlins, only to get literally screamed at by his Uncle Colin to stay away from them and to never mention them again. So it's certain that Alex will be spying on them shortly. We then learn Alex is getting screwed on his little Halloween vacation, and has to attend the local school while he's there, because I guess that's a thing. Hannah stops by for lunch, and soon the two kids are off to explore the forest together. Alex mentions multiple times how much he likes her rough voice and great husky laugh, so it's love at first sight basically, and the two kids spend a couple paragraphs making their shadows mime out a fight to the death. It only takes a couple pages, but Alex is already outside the Marlins' house taking photos, and immediately notices that the curtains are all torn up like they've been shredded by some sort of beast. Hannah is not into this and drags them off to the woods before they get spotted by the Marlins. They spend some time exploring the forest, taking lots of pictures of trees, bonding platonically, and then it's noted it's a full moon, which makes sense considering this is a werewolf story. They're pretty deep in the woods when Hannah announces they better head back before it gets much darker, but Alex really wants to see the titular Wolf Creek. He changes his mind though when a wolf howl echoes through the forest right behind him, causing him to shriek in a chapter cliffhanger. This ends up just being a prank by two mystery boys that we learn are Sean and Arjun, who go to school with Hannah. Alex has to stop and clarify Arjun's name, and Hannah lets us know he really is Indian. These two boys are a couple of bullies and spend a few pages taunting Alex and tossing his camera back and forth, before they also notice it's getting dark and want to get out of the woods. They mention they spotted a deer a ways back with its head torn off and bugs rotting out of its neck, but Alex can't tell if they're just trying to scare him. Before the two bullies take off, the topic of Halloween costumes comes up again, and when they learn Alex wants to be a werewolf, the kids all freak out because Wolf Creek has enough werewolves. Alex might want to consider changing his costume, it's stressing this town out. We jump to dinner time, and Hannah's hanging out, eating soup with the elderly. Uncle Colin won't stop looking out of the window at the full moon, but we eventually learn Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin have been photographing nocturnal wildlife and spending quite a bit of time out in the woods. That doesn't sound suspicious at all. The topic of Halloween costumes comes up again, but this time Alex has the sense to say maybe he'll be a pirate. After dinner, Hannah heads home and Alex is in his bedroom getting dressed for bed. He notices a light coming from the Marlins' house and is excited at the idea of finally spotting one of these mystery people. The moon is full, so he can somewhat see clearly, and is horrified when he sees two hairy creatures emerge from the house and gallop off into the woods while letting out menacing howls. He scrambles for his camera, but it's nowhere to be found. When he goes to find his aunt and uncle, they're also gone, presumably out taking photos of nocturnal wildlife while werewolves are running around. Alex has almost gotten himself calmed down when he hears scratching up in the attic and realizes whatever these mystery creatures are, they're up in the attic currently in a chapter cliffhanger. Except this just ends up being Hannah of all people, rummaging around in the attic for Halloween costume supplies because Aunt Marta said she could. A very normal midnight activity. Hannah breaks the bad news that she thinks Alex must have left his camera in the woods after dealing with the bullies, and Alex decides now's the time to go get it. Does this boy not remember the werewolves he just saw? You couldn't get me out there in daylight after that. He heads out the door alone because Hannah is like, fuck that, and he spends a few pages nervously retracing his steps in the forest, but actually ends up finding his camera before a rainstorm sets in. He briefly wonders if he'll run into his aunt and uncle out here when he's interrupted by a vicious howl right behind him. I'm operating under the assumption that Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin are actually werewolves because it just feels like they have to be, so maybe he'll run into them after all. He quickly dives in some bushes and then gets to listen for a few pages as the mystery beasts attack some poor creature and rip it to shreds. He hears the wet ripping of meat before deciding to take off full speed home in case the creatures can smell him hiding. Except he left his flashlight behind and is now racing full speed into the woods blindly. He passes a creek and realizes he must have actually ran deeper into the woods by accident. He stops by a stump to catch his breath. While listening for the creatures, he thinks he's safe until he's knocked to the ground from behind by one of them in a chapter cliffhanger. This ends up being quite the disappointment though, because this werewolf attack was just a bird nest falling from a tree and startling him. It's starting to sink in just how lost he is, and we spend a chapter with Alex debating on wandering aimlessly in the dark or waiting until sunrise. He ends up going with aimlessly wandering because the rain has gotten aggressive and cold. Lucky for Alex, he stumbles across some bushes he hid in earlier, where he dropped his flashlight. He then stumbles again over the corpses of not one, but two shredded animals that he heard getting mauled earlier. They're so torn up he can't even tell what they are, but it's safe to assume they were probably deer. Or maybe we have some asshole victims already and it was Sean and Arjun. This gory scene now has Alex extra motivated to hustle home. He's able to navigate his way back to his aunt and uncle's house, but as he's moving across the lawn, he notices massive clawed footprints heading towards the Marley's open bedroom window, further convincing this boy that his new neighbors are werewolves. These past few chapters have been a good time. Sure, Alex was an idiot for going out into the woods, but it resulted in some fun tension as he dodged werewolf attacks and wandered blindly through the creepy, stormy forest. We jump to the next morning, and Aunt Marta is on the phone with one of the Marlins, who's apparently pissed at Alex because they saw him creeping around their house last night with a camera. Alex tries to explain the creature footprints, but his aunt and uncle just dismiss them as dog prints from the Marley's German Shepherds. They then proceed to chastise him for going into the woods last night like an idiot. Hannah appears to take Alex to school, and on their way there, she quickly dismisses the German Shepherd theory and is like, "The Marlins are obviously werewolves, Alex. What part of this are you not getting?" Once at school, werewolves continue to be the topic of the day, as the teacher leads them in a discussion on lycanthropy, which Arjun declares is about people changing into werewolves. This is when Alex notices Arjun and Sean are looking particularly disheveled, like they've been up all night, like two little red herrings. The teacher then decides to give us some werewolf lore for our story, and we learn werewolves don't only change during a full moon, but that's when they're at their most powerful. We also get a spin on the lore with werewolves shedding their skin in the morning. They have to hide their skin because if somebody finds it and burns it, the werewolf will die. This is apparently a play on the Selkie, which exists in Celtic folklore. Selkie shapeshift and then shed their seal skin. After class, Sean and Arjun corner Alex and want to know why he's the only one who doesn't believe in werewolves. Alex thinks they're just messing with him, but the boys offer to show him a real werewolf, and Alex takes them up on it because he thinks he could take some good pictures for a Halloween photo contest. At dinner that night, Hannah stops by again to show off her upcoming Halloween costume, which was made from old clothes that she gathered from Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin's attic. I guess she's a rag doll, which they all find delightful. Alex is less enthused with this costume because he's busy thinking about his plans for the night. He's supposed to sneak down to Wolf Creek at midnight because according to Sean and Arjun, the werewolf stops by every night to howl at the moon and drink from the creek. Alex doesn't want to look like a coward and wants good photos for the photo contest, so he's going to head down to the woods again, despite nearly getting lost and eaten last time. However, when the time to sneak out comes, he's confused to discover his aunt and uncle have locked his bedroom door from the outside. He decides to sneak out the window, but soon learns he's also been sealed in there too by some freshly installed metal bars. The metal bars on windows freak me out ever since I saw an episode of Cold Case as a kid, where this woman burned to death as her friend stood helplessly outside the barred off window.
You'll take care of my pop. Don't talk like that. They're gonna get you out of here. Lori. Lori. Lori! Lori!
Nightmares. Anyways, as Alex is trying and failing to get out of his room, he notices two fuzzy creatures crawling out of the Marlene's house again and running off into the woods. Rather than counting his blessings that he's safe inside while the potential werewolves are outside, he instead vows to escape the next night. In the morning, Alex confronts his aunt and uncle and demands to know why they locked him up like some sort of animal. They're pretty nonchalant about it and are like, well, if you weren't trying to sneak out, you never would have noticed. They also reveal the Marlenes called the cops on him for spying on them, which outrages Alex because he hasn't done shit to these people. Alex heads to school with Hannah and is almost immediately confronted by Arjun and Sean for skipping out on the werewolf hunt with them. I don't know why Alex cares so much about impressing these two assholes, but for some reason he does. But it turns out they were trying to prank Alex this whole time and had no intentions of going out into the woods at midnight, with apex predators running around. Alex turns the tables on them though, and insists he did go out and photograph a werewolf, so it was their loss. This does leave Alex needing to obtain some actual werewolf photos though as proof. We jump right to it because within a couple pages, it's later that night and Alex is off to spy on the Marlene's house. He stuck a wad of bubblegum in the door lock, so he's able to sneak out of the house just before midnight. He attempts to get Hannah to join him by pleading outside of her bedroom window, but she's rightfully like, fuck that, and slams the window shut on him. As he's standing there stunned by Hannah's bluntness, he's suddenly attacked from behind by a werewolf in a chapter cliffhanger. But once again, not really. He was just startled by a howl coming from the Marlene's house. Alex's ability to localize sound is abysmal. He hustles over to the bushes just in time to see two people draped in animal skins emerge from the window. They're playfully growling and lunging at each other before fully transforming into wolves under the moonlight. Throughout this transformation, Alex is trying and failing to open his camera case because his hands are too shaky. When he finally gets the camera out and ready to snap a picture, he drops the camera with a thud which catches the two werewolves' attention. The werewolves sniff the air for a bit before heading off into the woods. Alex decides he needs to follow after them for two reasons. One, he still hasn't taken any photos of the werewolves, and two, he needs to warn his aunt and uncle they're out in the woods with monsters. Let's be real though, his aunt and uncle are the werewolves. Nocturnal photography is a silly fake out. These old bastards are running around eating wildlife and terrorizing the town. Alex quickly catches up with the werewolves, and in another chapter cliffhanger, it seems like they've attacked someone. Alex just can't tell who. It ends up being a fawn, but Alex is not here for the slaughter of baby animals and decides to let out a howl of his own to scare off the werewolves. This somewhat works as the werewolves stop their attack to investigate the howl, so the fawn escapes, but now the werewolves are ready to pounce on Alex. Baby deer are cute and all, but I'm not sacrificing myself to a werewolf to save one. Sorry, Bambi. Before he can be eaten, the werewolves become distracted by an unfortunate passing rabbit. They snap its neck and gut it in front of Alex, which he gleefully takes pictures of. The werewolves then take off further into the woods. Instead of counting his blessings, Alex follows them in pursuit of more photos, and also to warn his aunt and uncle. But the secret primary driving force seems to be getting more photos of the werewolves so he can get rich and famous. The werewolves drink from Wolf Creek and eat a few more small animals, all while Alex trails behind. This goes on until dawn when the werewolves finally return to the Marlene's house. Alex watches in shock as the two werewolves shed their skin in the dawn sunlight, but Alex is in for an extra shock when they turn around and it's none other than Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin. Probably buck-ass naked, but Stein ignores that. Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin crawl into the Marlene's house for a bit before re-emerging and heading back to their own house. This leaves Alex stumped as he wonders if his aunt and uncle murdered the Marlenes. He decides to crawl through the window to investigate himself, only to discover a completely empty house with two werewolf skins just lying in the middle of the floor, so there never was any Marlenes. You'd think they'd put more effort into staging this house and hiding their skins. Alex races out of the house to inform Hannah of his discovery when he's caught in the yard by Aunt Marta. She is very suspicious and wants to know what he's doing up and outside so early in the morning. They drag Alex inside and have an awkward family breakfast. Alex is just waiting for the chance to run to Hannah's house to warn her, but his uncle ends up putting him to work in the yard all day. It's Halloween though, so that night Hannah stops by to go trick-or-treating with Alex. He seizes the opportunity to tell her all about his werewolf discoveries. They decide together that they need to go get the werewolf skins, but Alex doesn't really want to burn them because he doesn't want to actually kill his aunt and uncle. The book then takes a sharp turn into the illogical. Hannah suggests they hide the werewolf skins from Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin so they can't transform, which is fine, but then she suggests that they actually wear the werewolf skins themselves because they'll never think to look there. What? That's what they go with though, because when Alex leaves the house to catch up with Hannah, she's already wearing a werewolf skin. Alex slips his skin on and the two kids proceed to go trick-or-treating in full werewolf attire. This goes fine for a while, but when they spot Sean and Arjun, the two boys take off in fear. Alex thinks it's because they look just that scary, but that's when he spots a furious aunt and uncle running full speed at Alex and Hannah. The two kids race across yards while Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin shout, "Give us our skins! Give us our skins!" They ignore their pleas and keep running until it becomes uncomfortably silent. They turn around and spot Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin collapsed on the ground. Hannah is excited because the full moon is at its peak and she thinks they've cured them. Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin then start ripping at their hair and screaming in agony, which causes the kids to second guess their decision. They stop their screaming though, shake their heads, and are like, "Thank you, the curse has been lifted, we're no longer werewolves." It seems very easy to stop being a werewolf if this is all it takes. My forgetful ass would break the curse by accident after misplacing my skin. It wouldn't be Goosebumps without a final page twist though, and on the last page, Alex and Hannah return to the abandoned house to dump off the werewolf skins, but when Alex enters the living room, he spots an extra skin laying on the floor. Hannah then reveals that she didn't need to borrow a skin for the night. She already has one of her own, and proceeds to knock Alex to the ground, biting him on the chest. So that's how this one ends. Hannah was a werewolf too, and now Alex has either been eaten or will also be a werewolf shortly. Werewolf Skin will be the very last Goosebumps TV series episode we look at until I reach Goosebumps Series 2000, which has Cry of the Cat and Bride of the Living Dummy. I'm kinda sad we already reached the end, but Werewolf Skin seems like a fun one to go out on since I remember liking it so much as a kid, so let's just jump right into it. The episode opens with some proper werewolf howls. This is kinda reminding me of How to Kill a Monster setting-wise. Oh, so he's a little shit in this one.
Don't you have some kind of schedule to keep?
Probably gonna need these.
Thanks.
Bye, kid. Don't let the werewolves get you.
Have a nice night.
Uh-oh, we got some lurking in here. I really wanted one of these lawn gnomes to turn and look at him, but that's a different book. Damn, they left this kid out all night. This is some daytime lurking, so it can't be a werewolf. I expected more than this, though. We have a brief car action scene intermission. Here's our werewolf manor.
I bet I can get some great shots in there.
More gnomes. Now some window lurking. I kinda get why Hannah left him out there. He's fairly annoying.
Get back to nature, Alex. Yeah, right.
Uh-oh, lurking with claws. The stakes are getting raised.
Who's it? Who's out there? Help! Help!
And stay out of the basement, too, for good measure.
And stay out of the woods.
Arjun looks 12 going on 42.
Chicken. Cluck, cluck, cluck.
Zip it, Arjun.
This should be the motto of Goosebumps.
Man, these people are weird.
This first part of the episode has been a bit slow, not gonna lie, but at least we're getting to the meat of the story now.
What is this, Alcatraz?
This was a pretty effective jump scare. Like, I remembered it 20 years later. This episode probably gave me nightmares from just this scene. Like, I have no idea if this episode was actually good. I just remember this part well. Sounds logical to me.
Well, it must have been a bear or something, a rabbit fox.
Get that cross-promotion, Fox.
Must be taking pictures of werewolves for the government. You know, some kind of bizarro X-Files thing.
Arjun sure is something.
Hour out there, Arjun almost got eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Yeah, they like my blood.
Alex just went full crowbar on this door. I'm sure no one will notice the damage. I enjoy how much of the werewolves they show in the episode. even if it was just a dream. And another dream fake out.
Why?
Whoop, they're dead.
Aunt Marta? Uncle Colin?
These werewolf photos feel inappropriate. Well, at least the werewolves are eating people properly now. The skins really are a kind of a gross idea.
Stink. Let's just do this and get out of here.
Burying them makes way more sense than wearing them for Halloween.
Colin? Where are the skins?
I kind of forgot these two existed up until now. So the skins can come to life? What? I do kind of love that he just whacks them with a shovel. It's like whack-a-mole. Okay, let's wrap this up. I kind of think I hyped myself up for this one because of the jump scare I remembered as a kid. It's okay, but not great. Overall, I thought Werewolf Skin held up pretty well, and mostly survived the hype that I had made up for myself. I found Alex to be a bit of a dumbass who consistently made shockingly poor choices, but these choices did lead to some fun moments, like basically any time this kid went into the woods with active werewolves running around. I like that Stein didn't hold back on the viciousness of the werewolves with various animal shreddings, and I just thought the concept of a werewolf shedding its skin was a fun twist on the classic folklore. I found the aunt and uncle twist to be incredibly obvious, but who knows how much of that came from me having read this like 20 years ago and coming into the story with vague suspicions of the aunt and uncle. I'm gonna give this one 4 out of 5 shedded skins. In the end, it was a decent story, just not as great as I remembered it being. Okay, on to our totals. Werewolf Skin didn't have any vomit, shoulder scares, its only dreams, or any asshole victims, but it did have some 90s moments. In Getting Jiggy with the 90s, we had 2 90s moments. These included baggy khakis and riding around without seatbelts. This raises our series total to 178 jiggy 90s moments. There was one prank and it's a prank bro. This was when Sean and Arjun pretend to be werewolves to scare Alex and Hannah. This raises our series total to 134 pranks. Werewolf Skin had a total of 12 chapter cliffhangers, which were pretty decent for the most part. This raises our Goosebumps series total to 745. The clunky award this week has to go to chapters 11 to 12, where Alex mistakes a bird nest to the head for being attacked by a werewolf. Shocker ending. Our big twist to this book was, yay, we cured Uncle Colin and Aunt Marta. But wait, Hannah is a werewolf too. Why would both Aunt Marta and Uncle Colin run around without werewolf skins when one is clearly left on the floor? Out of solidarity or lazy writing? This raises our Goosebumps series total to 51. Well, that's it for Werewolf Skin. I enjoyed this book, but found the episode to be a bit of a letdown. That jump scare in the window was doing some heavy lifting in my memory for all these years. Next week is I Live in Your Basement, which I have no idea what to expect. This book is completely unknown to me. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Werewolf Skin. Did you prefer this one to Fever Swamp? Do you think Hannah's gonna eat Alex or curse him? What's your favorite horror movie monster? Also, what did you think of my werewolf horror clips this week? Werewolf transformations have always been one of my favorite parts of horror movies. Anyways, as always, thanks again for watching and make sure you subscribe for
The pride. The love.